Hello, everyone, and welcome back to another episode of All in All with Alex. I'm your host, of course, Alex. Today, we have a very special guest. We have Miss Julie with us here today. I'm going to let her explain to you guys what she does. I'm going to give her a little bit about her background, and then we're going to get going.
Hey everyone. Hey Alex. Thanks for having me. So I'm a professional declutterer and organizer. And what that means is I help people declutter and organize not only their homes, but their lives as well. And so that means we might have mental or emotional, spiritual clutter, relationship clutter. And it's about clearing that and becoming more aware and then mindful so people can create a space and home that they love and a life that they love as well.
hmm Perfect. So let's get right into it. So, what inspired you to become a professional declutterer and organizer? That's the first of all, that's a mouthful to say, declutterer.
It is. It is a mouthful. Well, the truth was, I had moved from Los Angeles to Raleigh, North Carolina, and I was working. My background was nonprofit director of development, and it was a crazy place. And I knew within a couple weeks, I'm like, oh, this place is nuts. But I said, I just don't want to get another job. So, what can I do that I have to make money? I'm single. I've got to support myself. I want to
Mhm.
make a difference in people's lives. So, what is it that I can do? And I have to have skills to do it, like I'm going to be a professional organizer. And I like to tell the story. If do you know what SCORE is?
I don't know that I heard the term before.
So SCORE is retired people like in marketing and business. And if you're starting a business, they will advise you for free. And so I'll never forget, I went and had these two old guys, and they're like, "You want to do what? People do that? They pay you?" And I was like, "Yeah, there was a bunch of people in this area doing it."
Okay, yeah, that's interesting. You got to think people's lives are so busy. Whether they need, depending on what they need, decluttered. I mean, we all have things we probably need decluttered, whether that's our house or whether that's past you know memories or whatever the case may be. So that's definitely interesting, a pretty interesting story. So how do you feel that uh, physical clutter impacts mental and emotional well-being?
Excellent question. I believe the inner reflects the outer and vice versa. So if your space is physically cluttered, it's going to create mental clutter. Like if you have a cluttered desk, that's going to tend to can create anxiety in some people. You know, they've done studies that if you have a messy desk, people think that you aren't as smart, you might be missing a promotion. So it's all related. If you have your physical clutter, like if you're jealous, if you have emotional clutter, then that can create physical clutter if you're trying to keep up with the Joneses and buying more, right? Because you want to look Instagram worthy. You want everyone to think, hey, I'm super successful. And that means having a ton of stuff that I show off on social media. So it's all related. It really does affect. And if you start to clear in one area, that helps you clear in other areas. So as you clean up that desk, that's going to help clean up your mind. Does that make sense?
Yes, yeah, definitely, definitely. So like, what do you feel are some common misconceptions about people? What do you are some common misconceptions people have about declutter?
Well, I hate shows that show you in 48 minute with commercials that a whole house has been decluttered. So I think a misperception is it's done like that, and I don't see the weeks behind the scenes and the team of people. So I think there's that. I think there's a misconception that you have to do it this way. If you have to do Marie Kondo. That's great. Marie Kondo wouldn't work for me. And so they think that there's like a one size fits all. And
Mhm.
then the other thing that I would say is that people, uh, especially for people who are stuck, they think that, they beat themselves up thinking there's something wrong with them because they can't do that. And there's nothing wrong at all. We all have different skill sets that we're good at. And, I can't do my taxes. I have to have an accountant do that. So if you have to hire someone, that's okay.
hmm Yeah, I mean, I definitely would agree with that. You know, I'll just take myself for example. All the things that I'm doing. I think I'm probably at a point now where I'm like, you know what, I need to hire an assistant because it's just trying to do all this and then still try to, be what I mean, the man of the house provider and all that at the same time, and then do all this business ventures and all that. It's like, man, trying to do all that by yourself is just it's so taxing on the brain and on the body.
Hmm.
So I definitely can understand that. So, um, what do you feel are the benefits of living a more minimalist or decluttered lifestyle?
Great question. You have peace of mind, right? Think about your space. If you were to close your eyes and think of a place full, jam full of stuff, it might be really hard to relax in that. You have peace of mind, you save money because you're not buying multiple things. You're like, oh, I need a black sweater. But if you were organized, you know you already have 5 black sweaters, right? Uh, Time, the average person spends up to an hour a day looking for things. Over a lifetime, that's like 2.5 days just looking for things. I mean, that's kind of crazy when you think about it.
Mhm.
It will help you, if someone says, hey, I can save you money on your insurance policy, you say, fantastic. I have it right here. So let me compare the policy right now, right? It
Mhm.
just makes life a lot easier.
Yeah. Yeah, I would agree. And then being able to see what's what right in front of your face,
Mhm.
versus having to search for things is definitely better. I mean, you really can't beat that, because who really wants to, if you say, oh man, I had $20 in my pocket, but I can't remember which pocket I had. Then let me search all my pockets. Like, nah, you want to have that 20? Like, okay, it was in my right pocket. I remember because I put it right beside my phone. So let me pull it out. You know what I
Right.
mean?
Yeah.
So so how do you help clients get started on their decluttering journey?
Well, we start wherever they are. A lot of people come to me and they're overwhelmed and they know something doesn't that has to change, but they're not sure where to start. So what I do is I have a little assessment and ask people to fill out questions. And because I look at clutter holistically, maybe it's like, okay, we're going to start with some physical clutter, but maybe part of letting go of your clutter is saying no to someone, right? I had a client once who he was uh, repaired furniture, did antique furniture, but he was holding these 3 huge armoires in his basement. I'm like, this is where you make money. You don't hold this. We're setting up a system here for you. Let
Mm-hmm.
all of that stuff go. You can't hold on to other people's stuff. So again, might be saying no. It might be, what do you really want to do today? So it's just figuring out where they stuck and what are the steps that we're going to take to move forward. I like to say that awareness plus action equals change. We need to be aware that there's a problem and figure out, okay, this is how I have to change it, and then take action. And people stay stuck. I'm sure you know someone that they haven't changed their lives for years, right? Because they're either stuck and they don't know how to move forward, or they know what they need to do, but just don't take the action to do it.
Mm-hmm. Yep, I would definitely agree with that. I mean, a couple people came to mind when you said it. I was like, yeah, yeah, okay, I know. You know what I mean? You try to help people out as much as you can and help them. But at the end of the day, they're gonna have to take that step. If not, then it's gonna stay the same way. So I try to tell them, like, hey, do you know what the definition of insanity is? And then they say yes or no, whatever. I tell them, hey, go look it up, and then you'll see what I mean. So.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, that's a great definition.
Okay, so do you have any maybe like practical tips for decluttering and organizing different areas of the home?
Sure. Well, so what I would say is what's really important is figuring out where to start. And a lot of times people are overwhelmed. If you're like, Julie, my entire house, I don't know where to start. So then I always say, is something driving you crazy? Like every time you go by the living room, it's a hot mess and you get all angry. Do you have a deadline? You're just having someone come in and install cabinets in the garage, and you're going to want that clutter that removed and get the garage organized. If you aren't paying your bills on time and that's costing you money, then you're going to want to start where your office is, right? So that usually what I suggest is figure out one of those answers and say, okay, this is where I'm going to begin. And then no matter where you are, if you have multiple rooms, you stay in one room and you don't go to the next room until it's decluttered and organized. And when you get overwhelmed, write everything down into manageable chunks. So like I'm sitting here talking to you in my office. I'm a fan. I like to write things out because I feel really good when I cross stuff off. So like I would have bookcase and have 3, 2, 1 because there's shelves. And I have closet, right? And I would have the built-in. And so I would put all the little spaces within the office and then methodically go through each to declutter and then organize that completely when I'm done. A good tip is see how you can utilize space. So for instance, in your closet, maybe you just need to change some rods around that's going to help you get more bang for your buck. Or,
Mhm.
storing things like behind the door, having to hang a rack to hang shoes if you have a lot of shoes and not a lot of closet space. So just being smart and being able to maximize your space. And then I'm a fan of having something to contain your clutter. So in the bathroom, I like the not a merry-go-round. I love the little containers that spin, and because that's something that you can easily find what you need. But so one of the ways that clutter morphs is it's not contained, right? So if you've all your makeup in a little container, you'll be good to go. But if you just put it on the counter, then it morphs and it grows. Just trust me on this. It will. You'd think it won't, but it becomes clutter and it just tends to grow. So I think that those are probably a couple quick tips to get started.
Okay. Yeah. I mean, that's definitely some great ideas because, we all have something, when you think about it, like, hey, you know what? I may be a little bit cluttered with that. Maybe I could do this. That'll have it a little bit more organized. But when you're living everyday life, a lot of times you're so much on the go. It's hard to sit there and think like, oh yeah, I got a little clutter going on. I might need to fix that. You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
But it's one of those things where over time, as you be able to, once you get your life a little bit more organized, then it'll be a lot easier to get your house organized sometimes as well, like depending on how you
Absolutely.
look at it.
Right. And,
So,
I wanted to share that 10 minutes a day equals over 60 hours in a year. So you can get a lot done if you commit to 10 minutes a day. If you can only commit to 5 minutes a day, that's still just over 30 hours. You can do a lot in that amount of time.
yeah, I mean, I always say that slow motion is better than no motion.
I like
So,
that.
you can never, if you never move, you'll never get it done. But as long as you're moving at least even if you're moving at a slow pace, that's why they always say the tortoise, the tortoise
Yeah.
and the hare, the tortoise win. Stay slow and steady. The rabbit want to play around, but as long as you keep going and you keep pushing, whether it's a slow pace or a fast pace, you're gonna eventually accomplish your goal. You know what I mean? So
Exactly. And Rome wasn't built in a day. So if you've been buying stuff for 20 years, that's why I mentioned the shows earlier that drive me crazy, because it's not realistic. It takes time.
hmm so speaking of acquiring all those things for like let's say 20 years or whatever the case may be. So how can someone develop more of a mindful approach when they are acquiring and keeping possessions? Because we all have things we say, oh man, I want to keep that. So how do they have a better approach to where you know they're not cluttering up their garage now, and the next thing you know it's their whole house. Next thing you know it's their backyard and front yard, and now it's like they don't have anywhere to lay or go to sleep because they have things everywhere. So how is a better way for them to get a more mindful approach to that?
Well, I have a couple thoughts. First of all, a lot of people say to me, I've held on to this for a decade. I haven't used it, but I might need it someday. So, what I always say to that, can you trust that you'll get what you need when you need it? Right? That's about having faith and believing, that I will be able to find that tool, or maybe I can borrow it from a neighbor, or maybe I can rent it somewhere instead of having to buy it. The other place where people really get stuck is memories. I can't let that object go. And what I say is, what we confuse is we place our memory on the object. But if the object goes away, the memory is still in our heart and in our head. And so that's where I see a lot of people get, oh, I have all these memories in this. And then, when you are out shopping, become more mindful. Do I need it? Do I use it? And those are questions, do I love it, that you can ask when you're trying to let go of things. And then can someone else get better use? I said, especially when women are trying to let go of their clothes. I'm like, women who are in battered women situations sometimes leave with just the clothes on their backs. So that is a great way for you to let go of your clothes and know that someone that truly is going to need it and be grateful for it can use it. And I'm a fan of finding a charity that you really like. And especially, start kids young. Let kids declutter, because I've worked with adults who never learn these skills, and say, hey, let's find a favorite charity for you. If I'm a fan of animal shelters, so I'm like, let's get rid of these blankets and these pillows, and I'm going to take it to the shelter. Excuse me. If there's a charity that we believe in and love, that can be another, I'm going to let this go, and it's going to go to a good home, and it's going to make a difference to someone.
Okay. Yeah, that definitely helps because I mean I would think the reasoning probably behind that is, if you have something that you love or that you embrace or that you are passionate about, you're more than likely to want to involve yourself with it. So if you have a charity that you care about more, then you're more than likely, okay, well, you know what? I don't really need this. Somebody else can use it. Let me donate it to the charity.
Yeah, exactly.
Okay. Okay. All right. So what role do you feel like goal setting plays in the decluttering process? Like, so if I get up every day and I say, you know what, this is my goal for today. I want to get that extra deep freezer that I have that I don't need, that I never really fill up. I want to get that extra deep freezer out of my garage. Like what? So what does that? What does those goals help as far as the process?
Oh, I've never been asked that, so I'm excited. Great
Ooh,
question.
good.
I think it is a huge, huge play. Like I have this little clever fox, and I talked about I do everything where monthly and write it down, and I have a check in with myself on my goals every month. I think it makes a huge difference. And I'm a fan of writing it down, whether you put it in a planner like that, if you have a Word document, or you have an app, right? Because if we say I'm going to get to it someday, someday never comes. But if I
Mhm.
schedule it and I say, okay, you know what? I want to start a relationship, but my house is kind of cluttered and I'm too embarrassed to have. If I were to meet someone, I'm embarrassed and I don't want them coming over my house. So, okay, it's my goal to meet someone. So then that is going to be my motivation. Like what I say to people, what is clutter costing you? Is it costing you peace of mind, time? Are you fighting with your spouse all the time? And then ask yourself, what will you gain when you declutter? And to peace of mind, right? The older I get, you can't put a price tag on peace of mind, but goals play a huge part in that. You can write down, okay, this is what I'm going to accomplish. I mentioned breaking it down in manageable steps. You'll be more successful if you have goals and can understand your motivation to declutter.
Okay. Cool. Yeah, I definitely agree with that. I mean, everything in life, I feel like you should make goals for.
Mm-hmm.
Pretty much, every day you should get up. You should have a goal set for the day. Now we all know life doesn't always go how we have it planned, but having a plan is definitely better than not having one.
Absolutely.
Um, so how can someone maintain a clutter free environment over the long term? Because it's easy to do it. I ain't gonna say it's easy, but it's you can do it for a short amount of time. But how can you build that mindset up to make sure that you can maintain it over a long term?
Great. Well, what I tell clients is once you've done a major purge, it's really easy to maintain, but you have to commit to maintaining it. I go through everything I own every year. Now we've downsized twice. And so, uh, like I took last year off. I'm like, yeah, we've downsized, but I do it almost every year. So it's really important to do that. It's really important to be aware of your mindset. Like, don't bring it in. If you stop it before it starts, like get off junk mail list, right? Then you don't have to throw it in the bin. If you say, okay, do I really need those pair of shoes? Let's just not buy it because it's on sale, not because it's 10 for 10 for Kroger and you've got a basement full of food that's gone bad because you've never used it. That's where discipline and discernment comes in. Okay. Do I know? You know what? Okay. I'm not sure I really want to buy the shoes, but you know what? I'm going to sleep on it. I'm going to go home and see how do I feel when I wake up the next day. Like I'm very tactile. So I was like, ooh, let me just touch the clothes. And sometimes that's enough for me to be able to walk away. So it's stop it before it starts is the biggest thing. And then maintaining it and saying, okay, once I've done a initial huge purge, I'm going to go through everything I own and being constantly aware of that and on top of it.
Okay. Okay. That's pretty interesting. Um, so what do you feel are some of the biggest challenges that people face when they are trying to declutter?
I would say the biggest with people I've worked with is they feel overwhelmed, right? I've just got so much stuff. I'm paralyzed. I don't know where to start. I don't know what that first step is. And so I'd say that being overwhelmed is definitely the biggest thing. I'd say, and then sometimes people just don't know, like we mentioned, where to start. Some questions that you can ask yourself, like, where do I begin? Right. And then understanding, and you talked about goal setting, prioritizing really helps with that. Oh, this is what I want to do in my life. I want that relationship. Or you know what? I want to sit down and write a novel, but my desk is a hot mess. So finding out and understanding that motivation and allowing that to work for you. I've lost you. I don't hear you.
Sorry, I forgot I had muted it when I got up for a second. So let me get this pulled back up so I can get back to the question. So the question I was going to ask was, how do you feel that your background as a life coach informs your approach to decluttering?
Ooh, these are such great questions. You get a gold star. You really have done your homework. I would say that it is integral to what I do. My definition of clutter is it's anything that prevents you from creating a life and space that you love, choose, deserve, and desire as well. And so it informs it because I want to look at everything holistically. When people talk about clutter, most people just talk about the physical, and I want people to see the bigger picture. Like I've mentioned, the messy desk preventing the promotion or writing the novel, or the stuffed closet preventing a relationship from blooming. And so it's
Mhm.
really about bringing in all those areas and having people look at clutter holistically.
Hmm. Okay. So, um, can you do you have any maybe success stories or transformations that really kind of stuck with you that you witnessed through your work?
Absolutely. So I had one client, and this will be a great example of how everything's kind of related. And I was
Mhm.
working with her, and she had a stack about 2 or 3 feet tall. And I said, "Well, what's this? What's going on here?" And she said, "Oh, those are clippings and recipes." And this was when I first started my business, because obviously it's a lot easier to do things digitally. But she said, "I'm sending those to people." And I said, "Okay. How long's this pile been here?" 2 or 3 years. And so we
Hmm.
started to talk, and I asked her questions. And, I believe we all have the wisdom within. And I only see my job as helping people pull that out and bring that to the surface. And she said, "I'm afraid if I don't send people things and keep in contact with them, they won't love me." And as soon as she voiced that, she knew that that wasn't true. And we were able to put the entire thing into the recycling bin. I also was working with someone, it was second marriages for both of them, but they were still in that honeymoon phase, and their dining room was so cluttered that they wouldn't sit down and have a meal. And so that was really negatively impacting the relationship, because it's like, we're not breaking bread, we're not doing that check-in with dinner. And so clearing that off and getting organized, and then bringing peace back in to the relationship. And then and another person, and this is why decluttering can be so powerful. We were working, and we were decluttering socks, and we had been working together for a while. And all of a sudden she was like, "Oh my God, I was molested as a child." And the act of decluttering, everything's energy. So moving that stuff around was able for her to bring that to the surface. And I said, "That's powerful." I said, "I can't help you, but I can get you in touch with someone can." And so that's why
Mhm.
I get passionate about it. You can, that's like the energy, everything's moving around, and you were able to bring that to the surface. So it can be incredibly powerful.
Yeah, so it's almost it's almost like they're as they're decluttering is taking away some of those things that are bothering them. Like they're rearranging those inside of their
Yes.
mind at the same time they're rearranging it around their house.
Yep. Exactly.
Hmm, that's pretty interesting. Um, let's see. So, how do you feel that parents can instill good decluttering habits into their children?
Oh, I love this. This is so important. Kids are never too young to learn. And what's important is to establish habits, like knowing everything has a home. So we put our toys back. They should be putting toys back when they're finished with them every day, at worst case, at the end of the week. Starting to instill those habits. Know that everything has a home so they can find it easily. I love to suggest decluttering at birthdays and holidays. Oh, our birthday's coming at, why don't we let go of the toys that we don't want, because we know we have new things coming in, right? At the holidays and birthdays, getting in those habits. It's important when you are looking at all the school projects that kids do, is getting them involved, because something that you might think isn't important is important to them, right? And saving that, and then going through that. Okay, let's go through last year's and really try to pare down and have them continually using those skills, so that they have the capability to let stuff go and don't hoard and don't hold on to everything.
Hmm, okay. That's pretty interesting. I hope people really listen to that and take heed, so that way it can like you said. I mean, just being more organized and instilling in them the organization and goal setting and things like that. It helps people mind focus more, and you can be able to use your mind better for other things than having to search for something or try to remember where you put it at. If you have an exact place for it. So
Yeah.
let's see. So okay, let me ask you this: how can someone declutter their digital life and manage digital clutter?
Excellent. Well, I just throw in social media, unplug. I just want to say that. I mean, and actually time yourself. How much time did you spend on Instagram or Facebook scrolling? Because people say to me, I don't have time to declutter. I don't have time to organize. And I say, how much time did you spend on social media? Right. And time yourself, because I think, oh, yeah, it's 5 minutes. No, it was 2 hours. So I would just say that off the top digitally and get people to unplug. I would also say, if you have files on your computer and you have paper files, organize them the same way so that you know that you have that system to keep it in both ways. So digital clutter is the same way. You should purge everything every year. You should go through all your files. You should go through all your pictures. Like, why are you holding on to those pictures where you don't look like how you look? You actual photograph or digitally. A lot of things can be digitized now. You can bookmark recipes. You have something like Evernote or an app you can do, which allows you to organize things by notebook. Get as much stuff digitally that you can and do that. Like, one of my favorite tips is there's a website called manualsonline.com. And manuals are really bulky and sometimes can really take up a lot of space in your filing cabinet. You're probably going to find recycle your manual, and you're probably going to be able to find it in that site. That's just one way to let it go. But digitize as much as possible. But you have to remember that can become clutter too, and you need to go through that regularly.
Okay. Yeah, a lot of people need to listen to that because the world is going more digital. As the days go by. So digital clutter is definitely a big thing because you will see less and less people actually writing things down now. Everything is stored in your phone in a notepad, or whether it be text messages, pictures, whatever the case may be. So I feel like that is definitely important now, and it's definitely going to be important as time goes on for the younger generation also. So now one thing about decluttering is we need to make it eco-friendly, make it to where nothing that's hurting the environment. So what do you feel are some eco-friendly or sustainable decluttering practices?
Okay, great question. Recycle. Know your recycling laws. What is it that can recycle? I think that's really important. So you just don't throw everything away. You recycle everything that you can. I just want to include, don't give charity a junk. I know if you're in California and you give charity a bunch of junk, they're going to have to probably throw it away and pay a landfill fee. So you haven't helped the charity, you've hurt them. Rethink. I've kind of have touched on this. Do you really need something? Right? And or if you're at a networking event, you need all those little tchotchkes that are just going to fall apart after 5 days. Really ask yourself, do I need to go out and buy a container? Or can I repurpose something? Do I have something around the house that I can go ahead and use? Rethink, repurpose, recycle, reuse. Can you reuse something like a glass jar? I make tea and I use glass jars. Can you give something? Excuse me, I'm going to have a I'm sorry.
You all right? You all right? It's all right. Ain't no problem at all.
I mean, I've tried. I have my water here and didn't want
to. Ain't no problem at all.
If you can reuse, like I mentioned, the glass jars, or if you can give magazines to a nursing home or to the Girl Scouts or the Boy Scouts to cut out and maybe do their vision boards or whatever. So just get into the habit, especially of rethinking. If you don't buy it, you're not going to have to declutter it.
Mm-hmm. I definitely would agree on that. So how does decluttering tie into your passion for environmental and animal issues? I know we kind of talked about a little bit about environmental, but how does that tie into
that? Because, well, I should tell this story. So when I first started my business in 2009, I was living in Raleigh, North Carolina, And I was networking with someone, and I sat down. She said, "I hate organizers." Now, normally I probably would have run out of the room, but I just said, "Why?" And she said, "They're so wasteful." And I said, "They don't have to be wasteful." And I talked about repurposing and all this stuff. And I was like, "Aha, I'm going to specialize." I was the first organizer in North Carolina and West Virginia who specialized in eco organizing, and I won a couple awards for it. But people said to me, "You were going to fail because you were in the South. You were in Raleigh, North Carolina. They're not eco-friendly. You just shot yourself in the foot." And I didn't. And I ended up winning awards for it. So I think no matter what you do in life, especially if you're a business owner, who you are is going to be your business, and you will bring that into it naturally, whether or not it's your intent. And I have always been eco-friendly, and so it made sense to bring it into the business. And I didn't, so that woman saying, "I hate organizers," with the catalyst, be like, "Oh no." And I was like, I can do this. I can specialize in this, and I can teach people. And, I'm someone that I will never force anyone to do anything.
Mm-hmm.
And if I plant a seed, that's okay.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I mean, planting those seeds are definitely is definitely a great thing because a lot of times you don't realize how much you impacted somebody's life until maybe later on down in life. So
Mm-hmm.
that when that seed has grown into this great big tree, and now you're like, oh man, and they come back and tell you like, hey, you were the reason for this. You telling me this, or you doing this, or I just kind of watched you do this, and it motivated me, and so on and so forth. So I feel like that, even if you don't see the change right then, planting that seed is definitely very, very important.
Absolutely.
Okay, so what is one piece of advice you would give to someone feeling overwhelmed by clutter? Like what would be the main thing that you would tell them to do?
First thing, just breathe. Just take a deep breath, because a lot of times when we're overwhelmed, we're out of our body. So I'd want people to ground, get back into their body, because if you're overwhelmed and up here, you're stuck and you can't make decisions. Okay, I'm just going to breathe and get back into my body, and then I'm going to start. I'm going to pick a place to start and go from there. But when you're just overwhelmed, just breathe. The very first job I did, it was a whole house declutter, and I'd done the upstairs, and then we got to the pantry. It's the biggest pantry I'd ever seen in my life. It was like 6 feet tall, and it was stuffed. And I walked in the pantry, and I had a brain fart. I was like, huh, what do I do? Where do I start? And I was like, stop, take a few deep breaths, and it'll all come back to you. And it did. So if you're overwhelmed, just breathe. That's the first step to take.
Okay. Yeah, I mean, yeah, it definitely helps. A lot of times when you're overwhelmed, you're not thinking clearly because it's like, oh, you're thinking about the end goal of or what all you have to do instead of thinking like, okay, well, let me relax. Let me just say, you know what? If I have 50 things to do, I can't do all 50 at once. So let me start with, whatever is the fastest thing I can get done or the easiest thing that I can do first and start there and then, work my way to, the most difficult thing. So, alrighty. Let's say, okay. Okay. How about this one? So how was hosting the Clear Your Clutter Inside and Out podcast impacted your work?
How's it impacted my work? Well, I would say it definitely allowed me to reach a bigger audience, right? You're a podcaster, and I also do YouTube like you do. So it allows you to reach, for me, that was the biggest thing. It allowed me to reach a deeper audience, and I repurposed my things. So things that I talk about on the podcast, I made a book out of, and it inspired the other books that I did. So again, that's a different way. Not everyone can afford to work with coach or a declutterer, but you could probably afford to buy a book. And I know someone said, I got my library to buy your book. I'm like, have at it. That makes me happy. It's going to reach more people. So that was, I'd say, the biggest impact.
Okay. Yeah. And that's pretty good. I mean, and that goes to show that, like you said, I mean, to me, the book is one of those seeds because you never know whose life you can impact just by, that $5 or $10 book or how much ever the price is. Just them reading that book may change their lives for the better. I mean, it may be somebody, you live in North Carolina, it may be somebody in California somewhere or in Hawaii somewhere, you never know. And it changes their life for the better. And, and then maybe they reach out to you on social media or something and say, hey, look, your book did this for me, and it just those things like that make you feel better because like okay, I'm making a difference. So
Yeah, and I would just say to anyone listening, whether it's be great if it's me, but anyone that helps you, like I have kept every time someone has written me an email, I listen to your podcast. I mean, those are things that I just hold in my heart
mhm,
because when I heal, you heal. When you heal, I heal. And if
mhm,
you clear your clutter, you're going to share your gifts with the world and you're going to impact other people. And that's just going to expand. And you know what? I want to live. I'm not happy with the world the way it is. We've got a lot going on and but as we all shine our lights, we allow that to shine on the darkness and let the darkness dissipate and it allows us to all come together.
I would definitely agree with that. Um, so how many books have you written?
15.
Wow, that is a lot. That is a lot. So what do you feel? Which book do you feel was um your bestseller, or which book was your bestseller?
So I have the journal prompt series, which are 12 books. So it's like,
Okay.
here's journal prompts and then how to goal set. And then the Clear Your Clutter Inside Out holds your hand a little more. And I would definitely have say I've sold more of those, the most of those. And that goes into a little more detail. So if people are like, you know what? And again, everything I teach people how to set goals, to take an action plan and to move forward. But that was taking them like, okay, these have been really popular episodes. Let's write them out and put it in a book format. Because, some people can listen, but other people are visual and like to read.
hmm So do you feel like even though that's a series, do you feel like that's your best work, or do you feel like another book is your best work?
Oh, I'm working on a personal book now, definitely more about clutter. Absolutely. I'm not done. I love
Oh,
writing.
okay. I mean that's good. I mean you'd be surprised the things that will come to your mind when you're writing versus just sitting there trying to think of it. Like it'll just sometimes it just flows a lot smoother that way.
Yes.
Um, so are your books available on all platforms or?
Mm-hmm. Well, I don't have audio yet. That's on the to-do
Okay.
list. But I was a love-hate relationship with Amazon, but Amazon opens me up to a different audience, and then I have them on my website. And then Google Play, they're on. So yeah, I'm on most platforms.
Okay, okay. I'll have to get some of those links so that way I can put them down in the description and make sure that people can access or if they're in your website, I'll put them on your website. That way you can get that traffic
Yes.
there and they can
Thank
see what
you.
all you have to offer and then if they can use your services, they can definitely do that as well. So um we just got a few more questions. Let's see. So how do you feel? So you said you've been doing it since 2009, correct?
Yes.
Okay, so 15 years. Um, how do you feel your approach to decluttering has evolved over the years?
Ooh, I love that. Well, first of all, I changed my business name. Never do that. It was Healing Through Organization. Then I changed it to Reawaken Your Brilliance. So being a business owner, what it doesn't someone say evolve or die, but I think that that's true. Like, so when I was in Raleigh, there were a lot of people doing this. So one of the first evolvements was, okay, I'm going to specialize in eco organizing. Then I had a really great session with the client. I'm like, oh, you need to get certified to coach because you need to bring in more of your coaching element. So evolve that way. Oh, I did a TV show. Oh, evolve. I'm gonna now pivot and do my own podcast. Oh, I'm gonna make books out of my podcast. So I think it's constantly evolving. Oh, I'm afraid of public speaking, tough crap. I'm gonna have to get over that and network and stuff. Oh, I'm gonna do public speaking now. Oh, when I write the books, I can bring my books to my public speaking event. So I think it's always continuing to grow. I'm now creating an Etsy shop. That's my big project for 2024. And so constantly creating and saying, okay, this is what I need to come up with. And it's like, okay, if we're going to have a bunch of organizers in the area, that's fine. Then I'm going to specialize. I'm going to create classes and products that people can buy. I'm going to start to speak publicly. So just being able to pivot and grow.
Okay. So last question before we wrap things up. What do you feel is next for you in your decluttering and organizing journey?
I would say the Etsy shop because that's something that I'm working on right now is a big thing, allowing me to be creative and get creative with ways to help people declutter. Um, still writing more books. I'm writing a personal book, but I'll have another journal prompt book coming out shortly. And then, so I would say that, and continue public speaking. And then the other thing is, because I'm getting older, is I'm doing less of the actual physical decluttering. I do work virtually with people, but I'm getting a little too old to be crawling around 40 hours a week. So that's the next phase of everything.
Okay. That's pretty interesting. So, and it's good that you mentioned that you do virtual. So now people, watching this, they can realize, okay, well, I don't have to be in North Carolina, for her, I don't have to fly her out here to, you know what I mean? So now they get a better understanding of, hey, I can just do, a Zoom call, FaceTime call or something. And we can, whether it be a consultation or whether it be, hey, I need you, daily, on a daily basis, almost kind of like a counselor to, help me, walk me through, to help, basically almost like coach their life of, to make sure they get rid of the declutter or get rid of the clutter. Sorry. But yeah, so we're going to wrap it up right there. I definitely appreciate you taking your time. I know you're a very busy woman. So anything that you want to tell everyone before we get up out of here?
Yeah, I would just, first of all, thank you. This is a fantastic interview. I would like people to remember that they are good enough, worthy enough, and loved no matter what. Because for me, we're either coming from love or coming from feeling unworthy, and that creates clutter. So just remember that no matter what, don't let anyone take that from you.
Yes, I would definitely agree with that. Everyone needs to always remember, yep, you matter for sure. So, thanks everybody who's watching. You guys have just watched another episode of All In All with Alex, and we'll see y'all on the next episode.